The truth the girls. The truth the girls.
Hi everyone. Well, I didn't get to do a lot of vlogging this week and I didn't get to do my radio show, so I thought I'd give you just a kind of little news digest of the stuff that I've been reading this week. Here's some good news. The UN General Assembly has voted to recognize Palestine as a non-member state. So I'm sure this is not going to be the end of all their problems, but it's a step in the right direction. And speaking of the Middle East, somebody has hit the internet kill switch in Syria and they've been without internet for the last couple of days. I haven't really been following very much what's going on in Syria. They're having fights with rebels. Whenever I hear of rebels, I always think it's probably the US funding some group to overthrow the Syrian government. That would be my best guess, but I could be wrong. Anyhow, somebody hit the kill switch, so if it could happen over there, I guess it could happen over here. Anyhow, in other world news, you know, I did this vlog about the Bigfoot recently. Well, that's not the only weird creature that's out there. There's also this strange creature that was found in Namibia. I mean, this is not even a Bigfoot. It really does look kind of like a Muppet. Some hunters were out hunting in Namibia and they saw this creature, which looks like a cross between a human and maybe an ape and a crab and maybe a rabbit. Anyway, they saw it out in the woods and they shot at it. It was injured, it ran away, and they tracked it to a place where they found there was a whole den of these things. And when they started to approach, then the shot one started to attack, so they killed it. And unlike in the case of Justin Smea when he killed the Bigfoot, in this case they actually got it, they got a picture of it, and the other ones ran off. So maybe there's a lot of weird little creatures out there that we don't know about yet. Well, here's a story that's been going pretty viral. New York City police officer buys shoes for homeless man. Officer Larry DePrimo went into the shoe store and bought some shoes for a homeless guy who was sitting out there with no shoes on. And somebody took a picture and it went viral on the internet and he's being hailed as a kind of hero. But it's possible that he was the victim of a scam. According to this article, this homeless guy has been known to sit outside of this shoe store with no shoes on his feet for a long time, and people regularly buy him shoes, and I guess he sells them. So maybe the cop got scammed. But what's kind of funny is the way that this has gone really viral. Like, wow, you know, the guy is such a hero for doing this because he's a cop. Because people do this all the time. I can't tell you how many pairs of shoes I've given to the homeless. Well, I didn't necessarily pay for them myself, but whatever. I've done a lot of street outreach, feeding and clothing the homeless, and lots of people do that all the time. And you know, what's the big deal just because a cop did it? I think it's kind of maybe going viral as sort of damage control to counter all the negative publicity that the cops have gotten recently. Oh, you know, tasering old ladies, beating people up, shooting people in the back. The kind of stuff that we hear about all the time. Well, this kind of balances it out. Gives them a little good publicity before Christmas. And speaking of living in a police state, here's an article that I found quite disturbing. Corrections Corporation of America used in drug sweeps of public school students. Some schools in Arizona have been hiring officers from private prisons, private correctional facilities, to come into their schools to do drug sweeps. So they put the school in lockdown, and then they bring in the drug dogs that then check every classroom to see if the kids have any weed on them. And as somebody pointed out in this article, this is perhaps the most direct expression of the school to prison pipeline I've ever seen. What's the point? They're just treating kids at school like criminals, so that then they turn into criminals and then they end up filling up those private for-profit prisons. There's actually a name for that. It's called the Pygmalion effect. It's like when you keep treating a child a certain way or telling a person that they are that way, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Well, it becomes a fulfilled prophecy because then they'll actually rise to meet those expectations. But maybe they should just go about it a different way. Look how well this has been working in California. California marijuana decriminalization drops youth crime rate to record low, says the study. So they decriminalized simple possession for an amount less than an ounce. It became just like a ticketable offense, and they applied this to juveniles as well as people over 21, and they've had a really big drop in crime. So it looks like all that was happening was a lot of kids were getting treated like criminals for having pot on them. So why don't you just not make it illegal for them to have pot, and then you have less criminals? Well, I have an idea of why they wouldn't want to do that. And that's probably because the government, especially the CIA, would lose a lot of money. Why would I say that? Because of stuff like this. CIA plane crash lands with 4 tons of coke. And this is not the first time this has happened. It's actually happened quite a few times. And apparently, 17 months ago, an American registered DC-9 airliner was busted with 5.5 tons of cocaine, and that was tied to the CIA. And now it's happened again with 4 tons. Anyhow, read the article, and if you didn't already know about this, I think it's time that you do know about it, because this is where a lot of the drugs are coming from. It's the CIA bringing them in, and then, you know, it's a racket. And I guess that's why they call them the Central Intelligence Agency, because they figure that they're smarter than everyone else. But they're not. We're on to them. And speaking of the CIA, James Holmes blames therapists for brainwashing him to kill, according to inmate Stephen Unruh. Well, the inmates have said a few things about James Holmes, such as that when he came in, he had amnesia, that he said that he thought he was in a video game when he was doing the killings. He was totally out of it when he first came in. Well, apparently now he's been saying that it was his therapist who brainwashed him. And of course, you know, the police and the correctional facility and everybody else is trying to just cover this up and say that these people are making it up and there's no way they could have talked to him. But earlier reports conflict with this. They showed that, in fact, yes, people did have a chance to talk to him. And personally, I'm not surprised about this at all. This mysterious therapist, I'm sure, exists. And I think James Holmes was subjected to mind control. And if you're interested in mind control, here's a good book that you may not have heard of. It's called My Cold War. It was written by Anne Diamond. And she's from Montreal, and this is all about the mind control experiments that were done here in Montreal at the Allen Memorial and other places. And one thing of interest is the fact that a lot of times they choose children from a military background, or they choose gifted children, and they recruit them into these programs that are supposed to be to, you know, like just programs for gifted kids or programs to help them in some way. And in the end, what they really are mind control programs, as she explains in the book. And James Holmes' father was in the military, and I think he was also quite gifted. From what I've seen, he was a very smart guy, and he was at university. So I think that might be a reason why he would have made a good candidate, because of who he was and what his background was. And it's not to say that his parents knew what they were getting him into, but I think at some point he was selected, and they used him as a mind control slave assassin, and all this evidence is coming out. So those are some of the things that I've been reading about this week, and I guess that's it. Leave me your comments. Let me know what you've been looking into, and hope you have a good weekend, and thanks for listening to me, and I'll see you next time.